following message is being transmitted at the request of the Boundless PodTrap movie review and the guys of the BPT. What you are about to hear contains spoilers to movies. If you don't want to hear these spoilers, please disengage your listening device at this time. If you can't handle those with a possible differing view on a movie, you may also want to disengage your listening device at this time. Stay tuned for a movie review that only the guys at the Boundless PodTrap can give you.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 15 of the Boundless PodTrap movie review. How you boys doing? You guys ready to rock on a movie?
Guys, not to toot my own horn, but I think I picked the best music for this podcast.
He did it.
I feel like this.
Bingo.
I feel like I've definitely heard this in porn I used to steal out from underneath my dad's bed on VHS tape.
Well, I definitely know I heard our other entrance music to our other podcast in a porno, so you probably did.
Before we get into this,
Rob Zombie.
It's not out yet.
I love clowns.
It was Rob Zombie where it needed to be Rob Zombie. It was Texas where it needed to be Texas.
Anyway, fuck me, I have no girlfriend.
Anyway,
all right, go.
So before we get into the movie tonight, I talked to Justin a little bit about this, and I want to, when you hear, so vampire movies are probably my least favorite of the horror monster genre.
I can agree with you on that.
I have to disagree. That's probably my favorite of the horror genre.
So I'll ask you this question.
But I do agree that there's a lot that is crap.
There's a lot that's crap. But like Lost Boys, fantastic. Interview with the Vampire, fantastic. So there are good ones.
Sesame Street.
Fantastic. The fucking Count. Wow. But okay, so
I love to count.
In your opinion,
is that an accent?
When a vampire changes, is it like stasis? Does he stay exactly where he is and never ages?
I never really thought about that. I would say, I don't know. I guess the way I may have thought of it is like whatever age they were, they got youth.
They went younger?
Yes.
There's a unique thing in this movie that made me think about other vampire movies that, like in this movie, the vampire has a 5 o'clock shadow. It pissed me off that, like, no, you can't grow facial hair. You're a vampire. You can't get any older, meaning you can't grow a beard or your fingernails can't grow. And then it made me think of other vampire movies where, like, in Lost Boys, they have, like, a goatee and a little facial hair. And
you never really see their maintenance or anything.
But yeah, it's another reason that pissed me off about vampire movies. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest before
that makes the mythos of vampirism like so fluid. Is like there are certain vampire mythos where it's like, they're decrepit and wretched and like just, these monstrosities. And then there are the ones who become more youth or more vibrant or being able to be lust after, which that is very much pushed in a lot of.
So another, like New Moon, when Edward Cullen gets all sullen and whatnot, motherfucker's got a 5 o'clock shadow. How's that happen?
Because, some vampires are born vampire and others are changed. Some can turn into smoke and bats and werewolves, or just wolves, I should say. And then
Justin is the spokesperson for vampires.
You've never played Masquerade with all the different vampires and
no, but I have fucked my fair share of goth women.
Oh, gotcha. Well, now that the listeners know that this movie is going to be a vampire movie, not that it's going to be anymore.
Home on the Range.
It wasn't going to be much of a surprise. It's promoted as such. It's Blood and Donuts. Sorry. It's 1995's Blood and Donuts.
Fuck.
There we go.
People don't understand because he edits this shit out.
Yeah. So you sound stupid trying to laugh at me.
It would have been much better if it was 1999.
2025.
Cut that out too.
2071's Blood and Donuts.
But yeah, this is a Canadian vampire movie.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah, it's directed by Holly Dale, which she's done a lot of TV directings with like Law and Order, Dexter, Blue Bloods.
Bum, bum.
She has like 91 director credits, primarily TV shows, like I said. It stars Gordon Curry as Boya the Vampire, who he's also in like Jason Takes Manhattan, the 8th one. He's also in 21 Jump Street series. He was in Alive, Puppet Master.
Hey, a couple Puppet Masters.
Yeah, Poltergeist, 4 and 5. He was in Poltergeist, The Fear, Resurrection, and Highwayman.
He was on Poltergeist, the television show. We should be specific.
Same thing, right?
No, because if I'm not mistaken, he was also in like a Friday the 13th television show. Or no, was that
Jason Takes Manhattan?
No, I'm thinking of David Cronenberg. He was in like a Friday the 13th television show,
Possibly.
which is very different from being on a Friday the 13th movie.
The only female pretty much in this entire thing is, well, I guess there's two.
Yeah.
Well, there's more than two because of pictures, but
So
they're not
your
really
whole
actors.
sentence just
Yeah.
needs
I'll
to
edit it
stop.
out. No, so Helene Clarkson as Molly, the lovable Molly. She's mostly in TV shows as well, like X-Files, Kung Fu, Earth Final Conflict. Louis Ferreira as Earl. I thought Earl was a very lovable guy, but he's also done a lot of TV.
Absolutely. Worst accent I've ever seen in my life.
It bothered me the whole time I was watching that movie. I'm like, where the fuck have I seen this guy before? And I didn't want to IMDb it until I was done. And then when I looked at his IMDb, it's like, I remember him from the Saw movie that he was in.
Yeah, Saw 4. He was in Westworld, Riverdale, Man in a High Castle. A lot of the same people played with the same stuff. Also in like Bates Motel, Breaking Bad, Saw, Dawn of the Dead, Tales from the Crypt. Also 21 Jump Street and Friday the 13th TV series. Prom Night 2.
Prom Night 2.
These are just all the horror stuff because I'm also trying to market it towards you guys. Like, you guys know this guy. This is probably where you know him
If
from.
it ain't Rob Zombie or clowns, I don't give a shit.
Shut up.
But it's about Rob Zombie and clowns, so I'm 100% hard.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and give our ratings for this. Lonnie, being that you don't like vampire movies so much, or at least the mythos of it.
0.5.
So I have matured a lot from the Alpha Dog days. So I'm not going to shit on this movie
Fuck
as
you,
much
Alpha Dogs
as
is a
I
good
shit
movie.
on
It is.
Alpha Dogs was not a good movie.
What it standed for, it wasn't.
This movie suffered from one of the biggest identity crisis of any movie I think I've ever watched in my life. This movie had no idea what it was. Was it a comedy? Was it a monster movie? Was it a rom-com? Was it like a fucking three-way chick flick fighting over a man? Was it a mobster movie? This fucking thing did not know what it was.
It did.
No, it
The
did
actors
not.
knew what they were.
No, they didn't. No, they really didn't. And then it had terrible accents in it, but it was one of the most charming adventure rides I think I'd ever had. I didn't like it at all, but there were so many parts about it that I was surprised that I actually enjoyed. I love David Cronenberg in it. He's that guy who it's like, hey, there he is. You don't know why you remember him, but you remember him from stuff. And then you're like, oh, it's because it's fucking David Cronenberg. All in all, with all that said, even with a little nostalgia bump from the donut shop and reminded me of the donut stop on 13th Street that I spent way too many hours in, I'd give it a 5.
Jeremy?
So, as stated before, vampires are, like Lonnie, my least favorite characters in like the horror world. Not a huge fan of a lot of vampire movies, but this one I can agree with Lonnie where it's just like I feel like the story was all over the place. They didn't know where they were going with it. So story-wise, didn't really care for it. But there was something about this movie that just like captivated you, and I really like the style in which it was shot. I like the sets, the settings that they're at, the donut shop, the hotel room, the alleyway, the cemetery. It just reminded me of those 80s, early 90s horror films that I loved, and it gave a good vibe to me and took me back to those days. So for that reason, I'm going to go a little bit higher than Lonnie, and I'm going to give it a 7.
Nice. All right. There is a lot, I guess, I go against some of your guys' opinions as far as like the identity crisis or being in all over the place. I think the characters were stronger in their elements, as in Earl was so aloof cab driver, the Molly kind of a jack of all trades, knows a little bit of everything, as well as Boya, being that he has the time experience where she has the book smart, a reader in a cafe. The other characters who are mobsters and kind of a lousy cronies. And plus, for the simple nostalgic effect for me, I guess the locations, the sets, and that I watched this as a young
lad.
Thank you. Yeah. When I was younger, this is one of the movies that I always had to watch if I saw it on like HBO, Cinemax or so. I was like, yeah, ooh, turn it on. This stands away from most vampire movies because, yeah, there's a significant character who is a vampire in this, but it's not based solely around his vampirism, rather the mortality or the significance of his or mortality alone. Like there is so much as far as like just laying down, and even though he might have so much to live for, that he wants to end the hurt of not only himself but others, whereas he could be the cause or just him being there.
So it's a vampire movie where he's having an identity crisis about being a vampire.
Not an identity crisis, but a coming to terms. So my overall rating, I guess, I would have to put it at an 8, which gives us a BPT rating of 7. Thank you.
It's just everything about this movie. Like the comedy really wasn't funny in this, but it was close.
I thought it was charming rather than like laughing funny. It's like, oh,
right.
Okay.
Where in like the beginning music was like what you would expect a comedy music in the 90s to be. And then like the horror was like almost scary, but wasn't scary. And it's like, I see your attempt. And the rom-com, it's like, that was almost rom-comish, but it wasn't. And then like the Fatal Attraction-esque thing like was almost there, but it wasn't. It's like everything was almost great, but then they're like, nope.
If they would have just had a little bit bigger of a budget.
Yeah, that's going off of,
ball ya.
I think that's also going off of the, if you want to call it emotions. Vampires commonly are ones who are to be lust after, who are to be in control of the dominant of the prey, whereas he knows that's his position, but he has a heart. So it's harder for him to kill at will, or to, like, even the people who are hurting the innocent or his friends or yet to be friends, like, he's still showing them mercy. When he comes, his original lust arises to a homeless man who is broken, and he sets the guy back down because it's not the right thing to do.
That scene at the beginning actually tugged at my heart. And that's weird to say for the type of movie this was, but when he picked that guy up and just the look on that homeless man's face,
that utter
the noise
fear, like,
he made and stuff like that, it's just like, oh, and then like to see him go through it, like, oh, and he put the guy down. I was just like, man, like whoever that they got to play that homeless guy pulled off that look and that sound he made really good.
So this movie starts off in like 1969 at the space exploration, where that's the day that Boya climbed into a bag to sleep. So this is about 30 years or so that he's asleep, and so he's developing the hunger. And when he sees that person, like his hunger is not satiated, he's looking to satiate himself. But when it comes to life, humans, he has a heart for them. He has a soft spot because, and it's not explained, but I don't know if he was ever human or if he turned.
I was going to say, I seen the movie. I still don't know if I fully understand what the movie is about or what some of the plots were and why some of the things happened in it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, they really leave it up to interpretation to say where he came from.
I think a lot of it is starting back because of the heart, I guess.
It all comes around the golf ball.
Well, the golf ball is symbolic to the moon. It has its own craters and stuff, and that's the thing that woke him, which is also the thing that put him into sleep. When they did the space exploration to land on the moon, there was a line in it where he's talking to his girlfriend at the time, Rita, and he says, they ruined it. Like, the moon was pure, but for them to step foot onto it, it ruins it. It's not pure anymore. So purity is something that he wanted, and the moon is kind of symbolic to that for gratitude and kindness. It's a feminine planet. It's like a softer celestial body, and it reflects the sun's light. Him trying to reflect that back to his relationships is important, but knowing what he is and how he's outliving a lot of people, it brings him sadness. And then the song that you were talking about, it starts off with like the Mr. Sandman, and it's like, wow, I think everybody loves Mr. Sandman.
That song's used.
It is. It's
so many
overused, but
movies.
it's still I found it fitting for something like this.
I mean, at the time,
yeah.
not many movies had used it. I mean, there's a lot of newer movies that use that song now, but
The Sandman itself is like a Scandinavian legend, which brings dreams to people, and he was there to he was there to fulfill people's dreams, like Earl, like he
Mr.
lift 'em up,
Sandman.
set him back.
Yeah, where's
Bring me a sleep. It's hard to think 1995 was almost 30 years ago at this point.
Shut the fuck up, man. I will say Earl to me was the best part of the movie. I
His
think
comic relief was great.
His accent was meant to be all over the place. Like,
Fucking horrible.
you close your eyes, I thought it was fucking Christopher Walken.
Oh, exactly. The whole time I'm thinking he's just doing a bad Christopher Walken.
Yeah, no, it's just
But part of me was like, well,
He has
Christopher
like a-
Walken's not an accent; it's a dialect from the country he's from. Maybe this guy is also from that country, and I'm just racist.
He has more of like with Canadian brush to it, but more of like an Italian, like, you know, you say you want to, we go there.
no.
You're my
Not even close, Justin.
You're
Yeah.
like my friend.
If fortune would have it,
Yeah, that's a little more.
yeah.
I think I'm gonna go stay at my place.
My wife.
You were in the closet.
You want to
Yeah.
come make the love goosh on my stomach?
But yeah, so Boya's name actually means scared, and I think Gordon Curie, the actor who played Boya, expresses that scaredness because, I mean, like, if his hunger were to take over, he know what would have become of it. Like, there was in one of the parts where he actually did kill the boss.
David Cronenberg,
Yeah.
Doctor, is it Gibbs or something like that?
Yeah, he was a crime boss, Cronenberg was. He's also known as like the king of venereal horror, or the Baron of Blood, who is known for, like, he was in The Fly, Scanners, Videodrome.
Yeah, he wrote those as well.
Yeah, for some of them. I don't know if he did all
He
of
wrote
it.
The Fly. He wrote Videodrome. Yeah, he was in Night Breeders. He was the doctor in Night Breeders.
Yeah, there was a line that Earl said upon his first meeting of Boya. Boya got in the car. So at this point, Boya comes out of his slumber. He goes back to the grave in which he buried some significant things, a photo book, a jacket, a few other small items. Yeah, he recovers the jacket, I guess he gets into the taxi with Earl. And Earl, like, he makes a comment about, like, I don't trust a man who doesn't cry. And he's like, we're all human. But that's the thing, is because Boya isn't necessarily human, but he still has, like, the biggest heart than most humans, it seems like, these days. Whereas, like, Molly, she seems like she has a heart. She knows what's the right from wrong, being that she works a nighttime shift. She's probably numb to a lot of the interactions, especially between, like, males.
Right.
Like, she'll close off. Just,
She works the 24-hour shift at a donut shop. She's seen some shit.
Yeah. And not the introduction with Earl. I liked, going back to his humor, he's reading a book while driving a taxi cab and his hubcap falls off. It's like, he's so clumsy. That guy.
That movie made me want to try a kiwi donut.
A kiwi donut?
Yeah, because that's what he chooses.
Yeah.
It's new. Like, kiwi was new at 1995. I remember getting, like, kiwi strawberry drinks and being like, these are the shit.
I think another reason why I subconsciously like this movie is because it reminds me of my favorite movie, The Crow, where a man kind of returns. He's not really coming back from the dead, but he returns, he grabs his shit, and then makes small relationships here and there and tries to set things right before he departs again.
So are you going to say throughout this it's an allegory for Christianity?
No.
Man comes back with his sins washed and sets everyone free?
No.
Good.
And has a woman fall in love with him so easily.
She didn't fall in love. She
She didn't.
It wasn't love. It was lust. She didn't know what she was feeling. She actually cared more for Errol.
I will say I did like the sex scene where there was no touching involved.
This was probably one of the most
Yeah.
craziest sex scenes.
She had some nice nippage going on in that too, but I was just like, wow, that's like a really powerful sex scene for two people to be in completely opposite scenes.
So Boya's in the bathtub and they have like this psychokinetic or parapsycho sex scene. It's crazy. It's like two things can be affected at the same time in different places. It's sort of like his singularity.
And he came so hard that bath water was white.
Right.
It was white.
That was sexting before cell phones were a thing.
Oh. And then he replenished himself with his own blood. Why didn't you just do that in the beginning?
I like how every time like she would catch him doing something, he would say, "Oh, I was in the circus."
Yeah,
or,
he always had an
used to-
excuse.
I used to terminate.
But he was
The
never.
rat bit me on the face.
The thing is he wasn't really revealing the truth always, but he was always honest. So like, yeah, he was at one point probably in a circus. He was a exterminator at one point. Like, it shows like the photo book.
It's just pictures of tits.
In 1861 was the last date that you see in the photo book. So he was at least a man in 1861. There was like a pic in England at the Royal Ascot in 1947, and like the breaking of the shovel. That I thought that was a pretty decent effect of like breaking the shovel and then Rita using that as a weapon against him.
Throwing vampire lore right out the window.
Yeah, and he's like, "Don't believe everything you see."
Yeah, I
Pulls
like
it
that
out.
line.
Yeah, there's a few effects in there. I think one of the cool effects was the flying, but not showing him that's flying, using the camera as him when he kind of jumps,
Yeah.
and then you see the
That wasn't the first movie to do that. I think they took that from Lost Boys, which was recorded, I think, shortly before this came out, but definitely before this came out. I think Lost Boys was, 92, 93?
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was way before that.
Was it?
Didn't you like the marks and smudges?
that line, yeah, that was my favorite line in this movie. That
87.
was, geez, okay. That monologue from David Cronenberg was a fantastic motivational speech.
It's like there are people who make smudges in the world, and then there are people who leave marks. Be a mark. Are you a mark?
I'm a smart mark.
Oh,
Smudges can be removed.
my laughing track is not. Bring that back over. Yeah, I do kind of wonder how Earl, because he's such a likable character, how did he end up under the heel of these crime bosses?
I don't know. They really don't say. That's another one of the things in this movie that is kind of left ambiguous, is they could have left certain things out of this movie and emphasized other things in this movie. And I think it would have made it not necessarily better, but would have made it more, I think, a complete story. Like, they could have left out the Rita section of the storyline.
I think that was important because that also pushes him to his ending, because he came from one timeline. She was part of an older timeline, but seeing her as, you know, her thirst or lust for life, like if she was a vampire, she'd be one of the evil ones because she has the vanity which kind of corrupts her.
But was it really necessary? Like, when you have this already ongoing storyline between Earl,
It's a wedge between Molly for sure.
too much.
Not too much. It was pretty basic.
It's a basic movie.
It's a basic
it's
plot.
not-
It's just too many plots.
It's mainly Earl and Boya's story, which connects them to the female actresses or actors, the female characters.
Right.
But yeah, two things are happening with, well, I guess more things are happening with Earl. Earl befriends a vampire, still trying to chime back at a relationship that he had with Molly, and is kind of intercepted with the mob boss. So he's backed into a corner in so many different ways, or trying to find his corner, I guess. Going back to Earl as a taxi cab driver. Do you guys remember back in the day, like now, like you can just get on a phone and order a vehicle, a cab or something like that. But back then you had to call the place for them to dispatch something, but
Or just stand on a street corner.
yeah, and then wave your,
Well, I still do that every once in a while, like when I go to Chicago, just for the nostalgia of it. This shit's terrifying.
nobody stops.
Nobody stops anymore.
I've never done an Uber. I don't want to do an Uber because I'm afraid of what I might get.
Yeah. So for Boya's abilities, like he has this ability to like, if I'll call it like shadow walk. So his sending his intentions are psychokinetic.
Like his
It's like shadow
telepathic
walk.
thoughts.
And then he can jump high, he can regenerate, breaking his nails off. Like that was very, I felt like that was,
He stole
Not
that from
new.
One More Bobby.
they broke their nails off? Oh, okay. Yeah, they did. If you haven't seen One More Body, I must have lost that one.
Better than this movie.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say this movie's bad. Like I said before, this movie isn't bad. It's actually quite charming, and I did really enjoy it.
It's one of those movies where you might watch every 10 years.
Yeah.
And just to have on like, and I don't know if it's one of those movies that you would sit and focus on. It might be like one of those movies you put on while you're cleaning up around the house or something like that, to just have on in the background and just stop every once in a while and watch that part where it's like, oh, here that part's coming up. But like I said, it just, one thing I like most about this movie is just the settings and the vibe it created. It's that style of horror that I like.
This is a Netflix and chill movie.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of Tom Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite remakes out there.
Yeah, basically, it's a shot-for-shot remake with 5 minutes of bonus footage at the end.
There's a line that Boya said. It says, I believe dreams are the dialogue between the body's mind and soul. And I thought that was kind of like a powerful message.
A beautiful message, yeah.
And the part where he's at the donut shop and he's looking through the phone book and he sees Rita Poe, but she lives on Ash Road. And he's been shown to be stricken with sadness due to like her, but hasn't yet seen his past love at this point. Like he doesn't know that she's still alive, and she would have aged because I'm assuming this has happened in the past with him with other relationships. So I guess going through that hurt and loss, that or love, hurt and loss, that love, hurt and loss. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you have to watch everybody you love die. So
yeah, and present that question to you guys. If you had the opportunity for eternal life, was it something you would take? Knowing you would have to watch your loved ones die.
I think that's the beautiful thing about being human is that there is an expiration date. Like if life was everlasting, then would anything be meaningful? But if you had only a limited amount of time, then giving as much as you could makes that even more.
But is being a vampire eternal life? Because you always have
you always have an
opportunity to end it at any time. It's just
go out in the daylight.
Yeah.
As well he did. But yeah, no, so Rita, she lives on Ash Road, and ashes, they symbolize the spirit of letting go of the fire or of suffering. It's found in an all too real human mortality. And he did scar her, which may be one of the reasons he sought to put himself away and begin his sleep, maybe like kind of as an atonement. So when he awoke, I think that scar is something that kind of like he bound himself to her. So him waking wakes that part of him that's inside of her.
Right. She mentioned that.
I thought that was kind of cool. Also, like the going back to the golf ball when it kind of symbolizes the moon, but he keeps on like massaging it. Like it's a reminder of his curse. It's a recognition of his curse.
Is that why you have a golf ball on your desk?
That's to rub my feet out because I walk a lot.
Maybe that's what Boya was using.
He rubs it on his feet out. He rubs it around his nipple, and he's like, holy.
His healing abilities probably helps him from getting bunions and corns. Not that I have bunions and corns. But yeah, no, his light as a vampire is the moonlight. It's like the dark light, the reflective light. So he can't walk in the true light, which makes him come to the idea of the sacrifice at the very end, where he's still holding the moon as like a remembrance or letting go, where he finally lets it go at the, like, I thought that was a very noble thing where he gets in, like he knew what he was going to do at the very end, where Earl died, and then
which was a shocker to me. Like he's really going to die? I was like, what the fuck?
But he didn't die because she reads a lot. She knows a lot about and none of this would probably work out anyways, but she knew a lot about auto mechanics. She moistened his hands with the jelly donut, which goes back to the
shop owner.
Yeah. He said something about the Queen's jelly. They had to like add the color into it because people fear the unknown. He said add red and call it passion, and people eat it all night. Yeah, that was Bernie, I guess. But you know, she shocks Earl back to life, and then
straight into Mr. Sin.
Yeah. The car stereo turns on, and the car starts up, and Earl comes back to life, and then you can see Boya looking at the sunrise. Like he either has to get to cover or call it, and he's kind of making that choice because like he sees the happiness of these two mortals. He also said like all human life is beautiful or a blessing or something like that. And so him getting into the truck or the car, I guess, but actually didn't.
I knew, like, as I was watching him, like, he didn't get in the trunk.
Well, I mean, like, the actor got in the trunk because you saw him pull away and there's nothing there. So,
but I mean, because when she opened the trunk back,
yeah, he wasn't there. It's a different shot.
Movie magic.
But yeah, no, going back to like what Bernie said, like people fear what they don't know, so he adds the color to it. And then when Earl found out that Boya is a vampire, he still shuddered with fear. Like he wanted to be there for him because he saved him, but he's like, he's freaking. Like he doesn't know what to do. It's like, you are a vampire.
You and I should not live together. You might try to drink
like,
my blood.
Might I put you to bed, no? He walks him to the closet and shuts the door. He's like, I'll be back later.
We have bats.
That little, when Earl is kind of like dying, he's like, as I die, go ahead and, feed off me, do what you please. And he's like, you can't take blood from a dummy. He's like, don't make me laugh.
Don't make me laugh.
Also, Earl driving the taxi cab, this sign that says sunset, which is probably what attracted Boya to Earl. Earl is and drives the ray of sunshine. Like he is kind of like the happiness in this whole thing. The yellow cab.
Was it yellow? I thought it was orange.
It was orange. It was dark. You don't know anything.
Beats the shit out of me.
That would be the person beating the shit. What's his name? Frank Moore. He's the guy who played Pierce.
He
I don't
looks
think so.
familiar.
Sorry. He played Axel.
Axel?
Yeah, Axel was the crony guy. Hadley K. That's the guy who. Sorry, Frank Moore played Pierce.
So you're asking, do we know who?
Yeah, he was the little boy who fell off the Niagara Falls in Superman, and Superman saved him.
I did not know that.
He was also in Meatballs, and he's done lots of voice
I would
work.
say I'm on his IMDb page, and holy shit, he's done a lot of stuff.
It's mostly voice work.
Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, The Littlest Hobo,
Going back to like the dating, what I was saying, like
Beetlejuice. Oh, TV series. Sorry.
mid 1800s is when the last thing that we see of like Boya, but like the pages are like tattered and torn and almost ancient. Like you don't know what time period it could be from. So he's probably even older than 150, 200 years that we know of at least.
I'm looking at a screenshot of when he turned into the vampire to scare those guys out of the donut shop.
Yeah, that was a pretty good. I liked that. It wasn't as hokey as
The effects and makeup were pretty good
For
in
what it
this
was.
movie.
Yeah.
I think a lot of other movies could have taken some notes.
It kind of reminds me of like certain CGI. It's like when you have like Jurassic Park as the bare minimum. It's like it's Jurassic Park. It sold it. But when people can't even make it that far, it's like, oh,
So the way we watched this was a link you had sent off of YouTube, and it was 9-10 minute clips of it. Is that how you watched it, both of you?
Yeah.
Was the last one all pixelated and choppy?
It wasn't for me, but the audio was off on mine.
The audio was on mine, but it was all pixelated, and I was really disappointed because that last shot of Boya on the hood of the car in the sun burning,
you can't really see the
I
effects.
couldn't see the effects on it because it was just it was really badly pixelated. I like
It might have been pixelated, but I can't recall because I do remember just watching it on TV all the time. So, and back then I thought it was good.
I was gonna say pixelated. It looked like it was pretty amazing.
The only effects I didn't really care for is the electricity. That was about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can only.
Oh
imagine.
yeah, there was some like fire that went up through his face and electricity and stuff like that. Yeah, that was pretty rough.
But yeah, he dies with the platters, together at last at twilight time, and I thought that was kind of cool. It's like the seemed to think Boya's safe in the trunk, but yeah, he's out.
He's out laying on the hood getting a good base.
Yeah, and he gave them a happy ending so they can be, and he can't be a distraction to either, or a target, I guess, to Earl. Not that he would be anyway, since the people following him is kind of no more. Axel is still around, but what's his name is dead. Cronenberg and Pierce. Yeah. So, they had a pretty decent soundtrack. Like, they had the Platters, they got Pat Ballard with Mr. Sandman, Screaming Jay Hawkins, I Put a Spell on You, The Big Blues.
I Put a Spell on You. I love that because that plays a million times at my work during the Halloween season. Like every year I've been there, it's just like that's the one song that when it starts playing at work, I'm like, it's officially Halloween time. So it was like that really took me back.
Something I didn't really care too much about, it would be Rita. It's like she has a full-time job, but she has time to follow people around and all this. It's like you got these people's hours down. And like even working, she's spending more time in the mirror than she is helping people out. And it's like her beauty and her fading. Her fading beauty is something. And it's like Boya is kind of like over that. I don't know if you just want to do like a male-female perspective, but as like somebody who is immortal, it's like beauty isn't really everything. It's like the relationships that you have. Like knowing what is truly like purity. Purity, he knows what purity is. It's like beauty is fading, even though he doesn't suffer the, because he's cursed with youth if he continues. But it's like, he said something like it's like an addiction. You don't have to give into it, or you have the choice whether to submit. So he's not going to punch a hole into the wall to feed off of a rat, then have a friend who's willing to give blood right there. It's like, What would you guys change in this movie?
I would definitely have cut some of the things. Would have gave it more of a centralized focus. Like the Rita thing in my mind, I think could have been cut or very, very much minimalized. I think with a more focused plot, I think the movie could have been really great. But I think in general, it was a little all over the place, and a lot of things that should have been maybe focused on a little bit more and a little bit more in depth lost some attention that it should have got.
I guess my push for Rita, because she was that negative influence who wasn't necessarily a mobster, is like
right.
Her thirst for youth or wanting to be, she's like, why didn't you change me back then? Why didn't you take me then?
Well, Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, but for her to try to insert herself into a situation which she doesn't belong, like Boyd tried to walk away so many times. Like, back then he walked away because it wasn't the same. And she's all for like, give me the power. And he's like, you're not like worthy of having this. And
right.
Like you would hurt more than you would help anything. And then like I said, inserting herself into things, into like Molly. And it's like, look, wasn't I beautiful? But you see the picture with younger Rita and Boya looking exact same, 30 years apart.
Right.
And that was her kind of like, wait a second, because she's an avid reader, Molly is. Mm-hmm. She's always like reading like books on like parapsychology, circus dreams, extermination. Then it kind of like got her onto the subject of vampirism, which she figured it out. So that helps that. And when he kind of burns from the sun trying to help Earl, and she allows him to feed off of her just to regain the power. And it's not your normal vampire movie. And I think that's one of the things I really loved about it. I mean, certain things I would change as far as like effects. Now, they probably could have tweaked some relational encounters, but I think it was what it needed to be. It was.
To me, I think more information should have been given. I think there should have been more of a backstory or explaining the backstory. To me, when I watch, I don't like having to fill in the blanks myself or connect the dots. I want it. As a viewer, I'm not there to have to do thinking. I'm here to be entertained, and you need to entertain me. And although it was a good movie, I don't think it was a bad movie, and it was something you could follow along. I think there was more information that could have been filled in. And again, with God damn it, Earl. Thank you. I clicked on a different page here, so I don't have the name up there. I think knowing more about why he was in the situation he was in would have been helpful as well. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it was a unique vampire movie, and I give them credit for that.
Yeah, it doesn't press on too. I mean, like what we're discussing in this, like, does kind of push some of the vampire thing, but it wasn't the focal of this. I guess mortality and purity, and life, and loving each other. I guess with a vampire in it. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta admit, when it was a Justin movie and I was like watching the trailer, I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. But it was a pretty decent movie.
He likes everything I put out there, so he'll eat it up.
Darkly Noon.
You want to do that one again? We'll do that one next time around.
Yeah, we might understand it this time.
Nope, I'm still not gonna get it.
There's a podcast we did. You can go check that one out.
Yeah, check out our review of Darkly Noon.
Was that your first pick?
I think it was.
It was that long ago? God, these are just like flying by, because I know Pulp Fiction was our very first one that we did. And
we've done a lot of them.
It's weird because I know for that one, it was our first one. I remember getting a bunch of audio clips from the movie and stuff like that to play in between. And now we're just like, fuck it. We're just going to talk. We're not going to do any extra work.
Pulp Fiction, Dead Don't Die, Passion of Darkly Noon.
Man.
Terminal, Alpha Dog, Stand By Me, Killzone. Yeah. Go check them out. They're all good.
Yeah. Except Alpha Dog.
Alpha Dog was good.
Skip that one.
Alpha Dog got I guess it got a 6 stars.
Yeah, because of Dickie Bug over there.
I'm sorry. There's 2 things I don't like in this world. Alpha Dog and Justin Timberlake. Together, they definitely did not bring sexy back.
Back then, I thought it was cool to not like Justin Timberlake, but he's
He's
good.
talented, man.
I mean,
He's so
he's a
good.
great guy, and he's an amazing musician, and he's a great human being.
I think
But when he releases garbage like Alpha Dog, God, that movie was fucking.
this is off of Blood and Donuts, but I think the part where I felt like I might have started liking Justin Timberlake is when he was on the Ashton Kutcher
punked.
You got punked. Where they took his car away or something like that, and he was sitting on his front steps like nearly crying before they exposed that it was a prank. It's like, man, fuck, man, like he was hurt from that.
I always thought that show was funny because it's like Ashton Kutcher was the one that would always come out, but when it got so popular, it's like they were doing so many at different times. Like Ashton wasn't at every single one, so it was just like a producer came out, you got punked, and it's
They're
just
like, who the fuck are you?
How does this celebrity that makes them feel like shit? Like, oh, I wasn't important enough to have Ashton here. So,
I liked the next time on Ow My Balls.
what the fuck?
It's Idiocracy. That's a good movie we should probably review eventually, but
Hey, the Republican National Convention, sure.
It's my turn
Get
to
it?
pick.
Political choices.
yeah, what do you got on the? What do you got?
Well, I'm not going to do a swerve this time, and we're actually going to do this. And this actually is not my pick. Somebody suggested we do this movie. I have seen this movie. I think it's pretty funny. But no, we are going to watch the 2011 comedy movie starring Andy Dick called Division 3, Football's Finest.
Is it the third division? Like, is there a Division 1 and 2? Or is
Yes. Well, no. So in football, there's a Division 1.
No, I know
Yeah,
that.
but
I
the
didn't know
movie-
if like.
But no, this movie is a standalone movie.
Okay.
And it's pretty freaking hilarious. I think it's got the type of humor that we all love.
When was it?
2011.
11.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to watching that one again. I think you guys are going to find it funny. It'll be a nice, I don't think we've had a comedy movie in some time really on here. If at all.
I think
Election.
The Terminal.
If you want, Election is dark humor.
Election,
yeah.
yeah.
So
One Cut of the Dead, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Division 3 Football's Finest will be the next one. It's also stars Marshall Cook and Michael Jace. And there's actually quite a few people in this movie that
Home
you
Alone.
will recognize. So
Yeah, Home Alone. I got my pick too, but
Do you want to save it? Because you'll change it.
no, I won't change it. I know exactly what I'm doing this one. I'm doing Barbarian Sound Studio.
never heard.
Yeah. Directed by Peter Strickland, starring Toby Jones, Antonio Mancini, and Fatma Muhammad.
Oh.
Huh.
And Justin's doing something with probably the name, the
No.
word moon in the title or something.
I actually want to.
Do something that we've all heard of.
I'm watching the movie I picked. I've never seen, so it's a movie we're all going into blind.
I kind of want to do a rewatch of this starring Woody Harrelson. And I haven't seen it since like the 90s, but character whom he is portraying is somebody who I've mentioned before on the podcast. The movie I kind of want to review is Larry Flint versus the People.
It was a good movie.
I have not seen that since the 90s. So,
I would say it's the 90s since I've seen it.
and like freedom, being a podcaster, freedom of speech, and like he was a prime backer of
Isn't
freedom of speech.
Larry Flint the owner of Hustler or something like that? Okay.
Was.
Yeah.
I think he's recently deceased. Well, boys,
Good times.
Hit that
and
rap.
great oldies.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
You know you have it.
Yeah.
It's in there somewhere.
Michael's not here, but he is.
Yes. Boom. Thank you guys for tuning in. Come back in 2 weeks to catch episode BPT 036 for some fun talk.
I think we might talk about movies on there.
Movies
Yeah.
and music. No more buttholes, huh?
Maybe.
We'll see. Yeah. You guys have a good one.
Buttholes.
Be easy.
Buttholes burn.
Rob
burn,
Zombie.
Burn.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This concludes our broadcast day. Click.